Welcome back again, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a long few weeks with no content, so let's address that balance and get straight on with it. This is a Hot Wheels Volkswagen Kool Kombi. So I've already used the Kool Kombi on another one of my videos to remove paint, a little how-to tutorial. So if you haven't already seen it, go and check it out. I've had these ones lying around now for some time, so whilst they've served the purpose for other things, shooting targets, coat hangers, paperweights, well, who uses paperweights anymore? You know what I mean, there's been piles of them laying around. So it's inevitable I was going to go back and do something with it. There's always been this one in the background on most of my videos, and I do get a few comments on it, still even now off the Instagram page when I built it. So I thought with one of these I can go back and revisit it, because at the time I never actually filmed this one being built. It's a fairly straightforward process. There's a lot of cutting and shutting, but as always there's lots of styrene that I always use in building one of these little team transporters. It's not that hard. They're all fairly straight, flat edges. I'm going to change it around a little bit on the one I'm going to do, especially with this tyre rack at the front. I was never overly fond with this rounded tyre rack I did on this one. I was trying to keep the theme of the rounded combi really. So let's get straight on with it and pick which one we shall use. On with the first job then, and it's to cut off the rear hatch door that's left in an upright position on the back. It looks a bit like a spoiler. It took me a while to figure out it was actually just the door open on the back. I did always think it was a spoiler, to be honest. So we'll cut that off to begin with and take it and move it. You don't really need it for anything else unless you want to keep it in your little parts junk pile, but I throw these bits away. Then on to grinding down the sections of it now. Obviously the bit you've just cut off just to flatten it a little bit, but now to take the lip, it's like a little lip on the back arch. If we start to remove them and make it flush with the body, because we're covering up this back wheel arch to make it a van type front, because this is a little comedy square Kool Kombi thing, a little comedy version. I don't think they've ever made a little short wheelbase one. Well, I know they've never made a little short wheelbase one like this. So it's a matter of grinding them down and then onto this little Webasto style roof, make that nice and flat. And it's the first few times I did this I did a pretty good job, but on this occasion you do start taking a little bit of meat off the bone, as you can see here. So I'll address that situation a little bit later on in this video, but for now you can sort of see side by side which bits we've taken off. We've taken off the roof, filed down them arches, ground down them arches should I say, and removed that rear spoiler door. God, keeps thinking it's a spoiler still now. So let's get filling them back arches on. Old piece of styrene, you can use a piece of plastic, another little piece of metal, anything really just to glue behind, because what we'll do is once we've stuck this little panel I'm cutting out now to the rear of the car, or van even, we'll begin with filling it with some model putty. And I use this green putty from Squadron models. I'll put all the links for everything I do as always in the description at the bottom, so you can all reference them. But for now, if you just start to fill it in, it dries really quick, this stuff does. You can get away with wetting your fingers a little bit, but it skins over really quickly. As you can see, you can start to turn into the Hulk pretty quickly. So keep putting your top on. The amount of times I've left the top on and it goes that hard and starts getting harder and harder before you know it, you've wasted a tube of it. So put it to the side and let it dry for a little bit longer. Onto the little chassis underneath, we will use the front part of it, so we'll just remove these rear wheels and we're going to cut off this little section at the back, the wheelie bars from the rear of it. Again, I'll jump on the little scroll saw just to make life a little bit quicker and a little bit faster, just to remove it. So here's the little bit that we've made by cutting the bits we don't off, and I'm going to simply add some I-beam sections of styrene now to make a very simple ladder chassis at the back. And you can reference the bits that I'm keeping as opposed to the bits that I'm now going to add. So all it's going to be is 2 sections running in parallel and a couple of little solid sections across the center of it, just to give it the strength and rigidity. And if you haven't already got these little chopping boards, I do recommend them. They're a lot easier when it comes to cutting these sections and I-beams, H-beams, L angles, etc., because otherwise using a knife it does sometimes crush them and flatten them. I'm going to donate 2 lovely little Ford Escorts because I like the 50th anniversary wheels on this one. I think it's going to suit this van a little bit better. So of course the 6 wheels, unfortunately I've got to donate 2 cars, but I can do something else with them later. It's no big deal. I'm just offering up 2 pieces now and just marking out where I'm going to cut parts off, where these rails meet the chassis at the front, and where I'm going to cut little V sections to put the new axles in, and on the top I'll mark also where I'm going to put the little cross beams in as well. So kill 2 birds with 1 stone, as it were, doing both at the same time. But here you can see the little I-beam section with a little bit shaved off at the top where it's going to meet now with this original bit. And I've mimicked the V groove on this little orange original chassis bit where it holds the wheels, and I've just mimicked them again, if I put it the right way up at least, on this beam. So as you can see, the wheels will sit more or less spot on with the originals. So I'm just going to quickly pop off this front one that I don't need anymore, and all I simply do with this is use some super glue. I'll use a medium viscosity one. Quite what it's measured in, I don't know. I've just got fine, super fine, medium and thick. And I'll just put it in place. But as always, if you've not used some applicator before, activator even, not applicator, it'll literally gets all the moisture out of the glue, and a quick spray on it will set it instantly, no matter what viscosity of glue you're using. It's really good stuff. So I'll try and find a link and put it in the description below again. So I'm just going to cut off some little strengthening beams sections along the front. Well, they're not beams, they're solid parts. And I'll just offer them into the little points that are very faintly marked on the top, and using some of my Mac, a little bottle of ethyl. If you don't know what that is, check out my Styrene Diaries video where I explain all about using this stuff. And I'll just quickly stick a bit in place, stick it together, and you'll have something like that. So with it being a narrower wheel width than the Escort that it's come off, I'm just going to take reference off the wheels I've just taken off, trim this axle down, and what I've done in a past video is do a little method I like to use when making my own axles. I've done it with paper clips before. I've done it with, as I'm doing now, trimming these down. And I'm just going to solder another little nipple on the top. Nut nipple, whatever you want to call it. And this doesn't have to be too pretty at this stage. We just literally putting that little top on, stop the wheel coming off. Just by holding it nice and sturdy, get a little modeller's file, a little jeweler's file, and just shape it into something a little bit more prettier, and voila, you'll have a little wheel and axle that will fit spot on the original track width of the yellow wheels that we've just taken off. To keep these rear ones on now, I'm just going to take a couple of sections of styrene and again stick them all together, which effectively I am just sealing in the axle, keeping it all in situ. And as you can see, I've just marked them up left and right, but I'll stick the left and right little squares on top of the rectangular piece in front of it, styrene along the middle onto that section, and it will all hold it in place. When I come to paint it later on, all I literally will do is mask off the wheels, because the wheels on this rear part of it anyway won't come off now once you get to this stage, so it's no big deal if you can mask off with some decent masking tape. You won't see it, but a little bit of MAC underneath it again, a little bit of ethyl just to seal the deal, and it doesn't take long to set. If you've already watched my other videos, you'll see it's just literally a matter of seconds to do. And there we go, we've got a roller already. Now I'm just going to reference now where I can start marking out where the bed's going to be. The wheel at the front won't stay in situ that clever because we need the interior piece like this. So again, I think I'll just trim off the bit we don't need. This little replica surfboard thing hanging out the back, and it's got a little bit of a detailed engine, so I'll save that little bit. You never know, they come in handy, could come in handy, so I'll just whip this back bit off and put it to one side. And as you can see now, when you put all that little assembly again together internally, it'll hold these wheels back in place again, so they don't keep going back up inside the cab when I'm doing these little put together builds, if you like, just to see where about we are. So we're going to fill in the rear of it now and make the same steps that I've done when I did the arches. Just make a rough little piece again out of styrene, plastic, bit of metal, whatever you want to get your hands on to fill it in. It's just something sturdy at the back for when you're putting the putty against it effectively. So it doesn't really matter, you're never going to see it. So the same process again, this time using quite a little bit more, but fill in this void. It hasn't got to be pretty, we're going to sand it all down later on, but a fair amount this time. And what I want to do is on the side panels, it's got the little bulge panel line running around it. That's obviously not going to be on this one, so I'm going to make one. I'm just going to make a little sausage section, if you like, just to put around the rear of it. And as I say, it can be quite messy and sticky. on 1 second it's sticky and then it starts to skin over, then it gets a little bit sandy and brittle, so it can be a little bit of a pain, but you need to work as fast as you can with it. It's never ever going to be pretty, and that's the only reason, as you can see, it's a pain to hold. It certainly is no masterpiece, and this is the reason why I'm doing it in real time, just so you can see how pig ugly it can look. It's a whole part of modelling, I believe, making a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Is it a sow? Sow? Pig's ear. Making a silk purse out of a pig's ear. Don't know where I've just got that from, but as you can see, I'm just using some little pottery tools, little clay tools, just to give it a little bit of shape. And then that's all that's needed, because the bulk of it will be sanded out later on. But this is what this is what we have ended up with. Leave it to dry for a little while and we'll come back to it. So onto the bed of the truck now, and it's straightforward C section or U section, however you want to look at it. A square piece, another L section, and some flat section. And it's best to try out the widths of a few cars that you want to put on the back. There's nothing worse than going to all this trouble and then realizing the cars don't fit. I think I went for a 33mm width on this one, and all I've done already is put the little U section, C section on the bed of it, on the chassis, should I say. The bed now is going to sit sort of there, and I'm just trying out the width, as I said. But once you're happy with it, cut a solid section, and it's the same size naturally that'll fit within the C section, within the U section, so it can slide back and forward. It's almost like a guide, if you like. And as quick as that, we've got a little piece that will now locate on there and simply slide forwards and backwards and tilt off the back. I have in the past used some little magnets, I think they're called iridium magnets, and put the ones on the front of the bed, ones on the front of the chassis, and then they'll click in place, and they'll hold it for when you're moving it around. But on this occasion, I'm just showing this for speed. Now, some little L sections on the side to stop the cars rolling off. A little lip, as it were, just on the side of the bed. Once I've measured one, I'd just offer it up to the section again just to cut it off. Instead of measuring it out twice, there's no point in that. Stick these together. And for the tyre rack on the front of this one, I've already cut some little rectangular sections and stuck them to the rear of the bed, or front of the bed, depending on which way you want to look at it. And use some L section again between the two pieces, because that's where we're going to put the tyres, and it'll hold the tyres in place. And as you can see, it's all starting to take shape slightly, albeit it looks a little bit scabby, a little bit basic. But the general shape of it is starting to take form. Just want to put a little detail on this one as opposed to the others, because I noticed when I used this little C-section I had some more even finer pieces, so I thought what I'll do is I'll just put a few more on the side here as some tie down ratchet points. The beauty of doing these little models is all cars are different, all trailers are different, all vans are different, so every now and again something will pop out that I haven't done before and I think, well, you know, it's a unique build, so what the hell, I'll put this on. I used to say it can't be on there, so that's roughly what it looks like. So it needs packing out a little bit now. Some of these little floating pieces at the side that you get on the side of HGVs, lorries, trucks, 18-wheelers, whatever you call them around the world. And just by using two pieces stuck together, I've simply hand drawn the profile of the side. You haven't got to draw the profile if you didn't want to. I'm just making it look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing by following the wheel lines. It's straightforward just to stick them on the back or on the sides of the chassis rails, if you like, and put them down. Again, I've used no method in measuring up, and it's just what looks right to me. It really is that straightforward, that simple, but now it's got a little bit more meat in it. And surprisingly, when you're picking up these little pieces, especially the eye sections, you do feel a little bit flimsy, but as everything starts to stick together and brace together, it all becomes such a solid little piece that it does have a little bit of weight behind it, surprisingly. So though they may appear fragile to look at, they're actually fairly sturdy, fairly good. But that really is the bulk of the build. It's now time to start sanding into shape this ugly bit. I use various grit sanding boards, sanding files. These are actually modelling files, although they do look a lot like nail files. But as you can now begin to see, it all starts to smooth up nicely and look pretty good. It's really easy stuff to sand, this green putty from Squadron Models is. Sets really, really hard, but sands so easy and so smooth. It's really a great little product. And you can never really tell how good you're doing with all the filling and sanding until you put primer down on it, because the shadows and all the different colours does tend to camouflage it a bit. But if I throw some primer on it and show you guys now, I love the primer look. You can actually start to see some of the bits that are a little bit filled up, not shaped quite right, needs a little bit more work. So I'm not going to bore you all by repeating the process over and over again, but you get the picture. It needs sanding in other areas again, filling in other areas again, and just generally smartening up. But this overall is how I converted the Kombi into a transporter. I'm going to have to do myself some primer cars. They look really, really good. So let's have a quick recap on how it originally looked, how you get them in the stores now. Quite easily to wash over and not particularly like. They do look a bit of a comedy car to me, but the front end of it looks really, really good, the split screen one. So it's well worth taking a punt at and doing something like this. So that's how it was, and this is how it is now in a new super dry livery, which I didn't want to spoil, although looking at the thumbnail at the start of the video, I say that you've already seen it, I guess, but it's a theme that I've wanted to run for a while now on some of the cars. So this was the first one I've put it to. My plan is when I come to do some dioramas, I'm going to have a whole raft of race transporters and race cars, and this is just one of them, this super dry camo and orange theme. Super dry, if you don't know, is a clothing brand. One of my favourites. It's really good. I hope that this is giving you some inspiration to have a go at doing some of these yourselves. I've put little number plates and lights on them all again, as I normally do. Come up with the livery idea myself, and if you haven't seen my decal video tutorial, please take a look at that. That's on my channel as well. I do all these myself. The original in the background, which started all this off. And now this new version. I could go hours and hours and hours designing decals, to be honest, but there's a point comes where you've got to go with one of the designs. So this went through probably 3 or 4 different iterations of roofs and side panels and whatnot. So I can always use the other recurring themes on the race cars. So as always, I do appreciate all your support. I will try my best to keep more of these coming quicker. Obviously, family life and work commitments take precedence. I will endeavour to keep coming up with new and inventive ideas. I hope you all like it. Thanks for your support as always. All the very best.